Hi, Rachel. Good evening to you. How are you?
Good. How are you, Nicolette?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for saying yes to be interviewed today. I'd like to introduce myself formally to you and to our guests, to our listeners today. My name is Nicolette. I am the creator for the podcast titled You're Worthless. Read that again, the juxtaposition of your very soul. Now, before we get into the nitty gritty of things, I'd like to read your introduction for our listeners today, and then we can get on into the conversation. So, hello everyone. We have Rachel Rozen here with us. From Chief Customer Officer to Connection Coach, Rachel transforms professional networking firm from icky to sticky. Now, she's on a mission to help professionals build authentic connections, drawing from her journey of connecting with 300 people in a year. Her coaching strategies empower professionals to turn networking challenges into lasting relationships. Well, when not coaching, she's cheering for the NY Mets and the Syracuse Orange, reading and experimenting in the kitchen. Welcome, Rachel. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, Rachel, okay, before we get into the real deal, can you first share with us what was it like growing up as a Rachel Rosen?
Great question. Well, I was a first child, one of three. And so I definitely took on the role as I've always been a leader. I started working when I was 10 years old, babysitting. That would never
Wow.
fly today. Not for I babysat for my sisters, but babysitting outside of my family at 10 years old. I don't know why someone would do that, but I was a very mature 10-year-old and always really pushed to do things that I wanted to do. So whatever it was, I persevered through any challenges I had and did whatever I could to make myself um, find ways to do things that I enjoyed doing.
I can resonate with that being the eldest because I too am the eldest of three. So one of three as well. It's almost like there are, I don't know how I felt was expectation, especially from coming from my parents at the time that I've got to set the example. And that means I've got to get the things done right. And the sisters after me will follow. And that's also the good and the bad after realizing it in the industry, in the corporate world for 15 years. That I've been pushing until I hit like the burnout ceiling. I would say my ceiling, which is burnout. And yeah, and it's also the reason why I am doing what I am right now, from an accountant to podcasting and hypnotherapy. But yeah, I can totally resonate with you. And I guess that flows smoothly to our next question now. What is your backstory?
What is my backstory? Where should I start? How far back?
Well, your career and what you do
Okay.
now.
So my career actually began in hospitality. So I started cooking when I was 16 years old and I went to culinary school. So my degree is in culinary arts and culinary nutrition. And I worked all over the country, all over the US when I was in college. And I also did an internship in England. And after college, I decided to go to the front of the house instead of the back of the house. And I worked for Hyatt for many years, all over the country in Washington, D.C., Dallas, Texas, and Seattle, Washington. And then 11 and a half years ago, I decided that I was going to leave Hyatt, which was very difficult for me because I was very attached to that company. I felt like I was going through a divorce, actually. I've never been married, but the closest to marriage it's been is Hyatt.
Hi. Uh-huh.
And then I picked everything up and moved 3,000 miles across the country to New York City and didn't have a job. I knew I
Wow.
wanted to
Okay.
work at a chef-driven restaurant,
Right.
but nobody wanted to hire me because I didn't have New York City restaurant experience. So I tried really hard and I happened to get the job, my dream job, honestly, in New York City, working for Jean-Georges Van Richten at ABC Kitchen. And the reason why I got that opportunity was because I had Seattle on my resume and the general manager at the time was from Seattle. So anyone that had Seattle restaurants on their resume automatically got an interview. And I knew if someone would interview me, I would get a job. And I did. And then I worked my way up there to be general manager of 3 restaurants. And then I left there to go to the tech side of hospitality. and worked for a point of sale company. Worked my way up to VP of customer experience. And then when COVID happened, our parent company, who had acquired us a year prior, had laid everybody off except for my team and our engineering team. So I became the de facto GM of that business unit and took over everything except for the developers. I don't know how to code, but I did pretty much everything else. And
Wow.
then I left there at the end of 2020 to become the chief customer officer at another food tech company. And then I was there for a little over a year, and I had gone all the way to the top of the C-suite, but I wasn't really happy there anymore. And I didn't know what I wanted to do next. And I decided to leave. And I took what I call a learning sabbatical to try to figure out what was next for me. And I did a bunch of traveling and took time off. And that's the time where I started realizing that I really needed to network, because I had been a workaholic and I had just invested in the relationships within my companies that I worked at and my clients. But really, I was more focused on the day-to-day than anything else. And I knew I didn't want to do what I was doing before. And that's how I ended up having to go through the process of meeting new people and realizing that networking was actually a skill set. And I got some consulting jobs from that. And people just kept coming up to me in different communities that I was in and saying, Rachel, how are you doing this? And I realized that there's something more to it. And someone asked me to do a webinar, and I did my first webinar of January of last year. So 2023, we're almost at 2025, which is crazy. It's almost 2 years ago. And in May of 2023 is when I decided to start this business and teach and coach people on networking, because I realized that there really is a need for people to learn how to do it effectively. And networking is not just for your professional development, it's also personally to network as well.
I love that you had so many points right there. I have so many questions regarding your journey up to the C-suite level and how you transition. Like, what did you feel when you thought of when you had to say, okay, I need to transition out? Like, what was happening then? What were you feeling?
When I left as a chief customer officer,
Yeah, in Hyatt,
yeah,
and also in that tech
oh, in
company.
Hyatt.
Hyatt. Okay. Yeah.
So when I left Hyatt, that was a really, really tough decision for me, because I worked in food and beverage, and I was the director of restaurants at the time at that property. And I really wanted to be an assistant food and beverage director. And I had been trying for assistant food and beverage director for probably 6 months before I got that job. And I was really struggling. I always was a number 2 choice. And it wasn't because of me or my accolades. It was because the way the company was going, they were really devaluing having food and beverage directors. So food and beverage directors were going down to become assistant food and beverage directors. So you couldn't really get promoted up because people 2 levels above me were going down. And so
Right.
I realized that my career trajectory was not what I thought it was going to be anymore, because I didn't want to go to the room side of things or work in other departments within hospitality or within the hotel. And so I didn't really have another choice. So I talked to a lot of my mentors from within Hyatt to try to make this decision to figure out what to do. And ultimately I said, I have to bet on myself. Like, I have to do what I think is going to be the best decision for me. As difficult as it was at the time, I knew that I had to make that move. And so I really struggled with it, but I'm glad that I made the move when I did. And I'm even more glad now, like today, that's the case, that happened. And then from leaving my role as chief customer officer, that was even more of a struggle, because when you work in a startup, it's very, very difficult. You're going nonstop, and we were in hyper growth mode. I had hired 50 people in 1 year, and that is a lot. So basically I was hiring nonstop, but also trying to run the business and create process. And it was a global I'd hire people globally. So I had people from Canada, Philippines, all over the United States. Of those 50 people, I might have only met 5 of them in person, because we were still kind of in COVID mode. So doing everything remotely, trying to build a culture, trying to build just everything that you can within departments and a company. And it was very difficult. And I realized that I was burning myself out, and I didn't know that that was the case in the moment. And I actually read a book after I left called Millennial Burnout. And every page that I was reading off that book, I was like, that's me,
Me,
that's me, that's
me,
me, that's me.
me.
Like, yeah, there wasn't a page in that book that I didn't agree with. And I realized that I really needed to take time off. And at first I was actually calling it my mid-career retirement because I just knew that I needed a break and I had no idea what I wanted to do next. And that's what, when I traveled and I went to Costa Rica for a few weeks, and then I went to Sri Lanka and the Maldives for 2.5 weeks. And then I came back and just really, I had done a lot of resting, a lot of thinking, and really just wanted to figure out what I enjoyed doing, because I was just doing things for so long, but I didn't really know what I liked. And so I was the type of person that is good at many, many things. And
Oh,
that's not always a positive for a lot of companies. They want you to
yeah, that's
focus on
right.
one thing, and that's not who I am. I need to be doing lots of different things.
Hi, I'm Nierras, your host of the Your Wordless podcast. Now, if these real raw stories hit home, don't wait. Please follow, like, and subscribe my Spotify and YouTube. For bite-sized inspirational reels, follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Don't wait. Your transformation starts today. Thank you, and bye for now. Preach.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, so, and again, I can resonate. Meeting people, connecting with people is one of my, if I would say, the one of my greatest skill that I have right now, and I love it to the core of my being. You having said that means that you've achieved. It's like an accomplishment, right? And then you check off your milestone. It's not so much about proving yourself to other people, but it's about proving your proving it to you that you can actually reach that height, right? So for me, I love it. I love that you mentioned that. And when you traveled, now I'm curious, like how long did you take?
To
How long did
travel.
you, yeah, how long, yeah, the
Yeah.
sabbatical.
So I spent my total sabbatical was a little over 6 months, but I spent 2 weeks in Sri Lanka, and then I spent 2.5 weeks. I'm sorry, I spent 2 weeks in Costa Rica, and then I spent 2.5 weeks between Sri Lanka and the Maldives.
Right. And the sabbatical that you take from starting your, from leaving the tech and then to your own company, which is Connection Catalyst, right? Like what was the cool off period, I would say. The cooling period. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was about 7 months or so that
7 months.
I
Okay.
took. Yeah, and I also I turned 40 that April before I started my business, and I took a trip to Italy with some friends to rented a villa in Tuscany, and then was in Italy for about 2 weeks as well, a little over 2 weeks, I guess. So I did a whole lot of travel before I put myself back into doing work.
Awesome. Can you just give me 1 second? Let me just, because my mother is doing
Yeah.
something in the kitchen. Just give me, I'm going to cut
Yeah,
this
no
out
worries.
from our.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. It's still, there's no clattering anymore, but there's still some noise. But
Okay. Okay. I think it's because of the microphone is picking up the sound from the fan. But once this gets uploaded to
okay.
Riverside, I'll be sure to remove all the background noises. So, yeah.
Okay. All right.
And
Sounds
then,
good.
yeah. Okay. So, coming back to the interview, now, Rachel, can you talk to us about your company, Connection Catalyst?
Yeah. So I work with individuals either through one-on-one coaching or group coaching to help empower them to take the icky out of networking and create sticky relationships. And my goal truly is for people to make networking a habit, because we often do it only in a need moment. So a lot of people think they need to network when they're looking for a new job. And yes, you absolutely do, but you should be networking all the time. And I don't even really like the word networking. I like to use the word connection. When are we making connections with people, and what is that looking like, and how are we building upon those connections, and knowing that it's not just for work to make connections, it's for our personal lives too. And it is intertwined. And people, not that everybody needs to know everything about your life, but there are things that you might enjoy doing that is going to make conversations more valuable. So, for example, you can see all the books in the background. I purposely have my desk set up this way and the books there because people will say, "Oh, you like to read? Why not look at people's backgrounds and see what do they like?" People are hiding that. Yeah, maybe your kitchen is messy or maybe wherever you are is, but there are things that people can pick out that will help create a connection with somebody. And obviously we're, on a video recording right now, but if you're in person, the same thing, you can build connections with people pretty easily. I also do workshops and speaking engagements at companies, associations. And in New York City, I do small group dinners for executives and entrepreneurs. It's a maximum of 8 people. And I do that twice a month. And so I have a email list where people can apply to come to those dinners. And the goal is to bring together people from different industries, roles, genders, and generations to have a conversation over great food. And the reason why I started doing this was specifically around Adam Grant's book, Give and Take. And he was on an American Express business podcast in May of 2023. And one of the insights that he said, they were talking to him about what he thought about his book today versus when he wrote it. And he mentioned that oftentimes people connect with those that are in their same circles all the time. They don't really go outside their circle. So, for example, if you're a marketer, you may only talk to other marketers. And maybe you do marketing, but you do that in media. So you're only talking to marketers in media. And so you're not learning anything new. You're just recycling ideas. So by bringing people together from all different walks of life, again, really from the executive and the entrepreneur side, just because of the level of conversation that we have, allows people to connect with those they never thought that they would before.
I love it. Now, my question, or me being curious, what's the process of transforming icky networking to sticky relationship? Like, I know, what's the basic tenet that underpin?
So the biggest thing is knowing what tools you can use that's going to benefit you in your networking. So one of the main frameworks that I teach is what I call the 3 I's. And the 3 I's is around the way that you're having a conversation with someone or you're interacting with someone. You're often, when it comes to networking, we think about the give and get. I need to give somebody something in order to get something back. I can't just ask for something to get something. And we often don't know what that could be. And so that's where this framework comes to play. So when we're having a conversation and we're listening to what the other person is saying, what can we potentially do for them? So the first I is an introduction. Can I introduce you to somebody else that could benefit you? Or vice versa. Can you introduce me to somebody? The second I is information. So information could be a podcast, advice, article, a book. Could be something tangible as well if need be. But what is something that you could potentially share with that person that could help them, or vice versa? And the last I is an invitation. Can you invite someone somewhere else besides for the conversation they're having right now? So maybe you're in a group setting and you want to go create a one-on-one conversation that you have at a later point in time. Or you're part of a community that you think that they may really benefit from. So you invite them to the community. Or it could be something virtual. Maybe you want to invite them to a webinar. But what's something that you can do that you're inviting them someplace? So again, the 3 I's are invitation, information, and introduction. And you don't have to give all 3. You might give one, or you may not even have anything in that conversation. But then you leave the conversation, you realize, oh, Nicolette, I realized after we spoke, I want to introduce you to this person, or I wanted to share this with you. So it's a great follow-up tactic as well.
I like that. I like that. The one thing that stood out was the part when you said giving, but not really, not expecting something in return, right? Because it's for your interest. And I guess
Yes.
everybody's who's trying to make meaningful, authentic connection, they have to come in with their heart, right? And not with the mind by saying like, okay, if I connect with Rachel, what can Rachel bring to me? I mean, in that it's
Exactly.
just transactional, which defeats the whole purpose of building meaningful connection. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people that are just that are like that too. And it's up to us to come in with the right intention, the way I would the way I would see it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that, Rachel.
Absolutely.
Can you share some success stories of individuals or businesses that have benefited from your one-on-one or group coaching session? Becoming a podcast host was a natural extension of my second act. And after spending 15 years in the corporate world, I've transitioned to helping individuals overcome challenges like navigating tough relationships, career burnout, and aligning their mission with their soul's calling. By certifying as an RTT hypnotherapist and a lifestyle coach, I've made it my mission to empower people to recreate the life they deserve and building a supportive community through my podcast. Now, let me ask, are you facing challenges like struggling to reprogram your mind to attract wealth, weight issues that feel like a constant yo yo, insomnia or restless nights from daily worries, or just a lack of confidence in public speaking? If the answer is yes, visit www.thenierrasholisticlifestyle.com and grab a free hypnosis audio of these common struggles. It's a sneak peek into how my coaching works. Are you feeling shy? Don't be, because I'm as real as it gets. Let's connect on Instagram and LinkedIn and start your transformation today.
Yeah. So there was one of my recent clients. She was always very nervous going to in-person large events because she wanted to get something out of it, but she never was really sure what that looked like. And oftentimes she would go to an event and nothing really good would come of it. So we talked through different things that she could potentially give. And she works at a very large company. And the building that the company is in is a place that people want to go to see or see the top, get to the very top of that building and see the city scene. And so we
Right.
talked about when you meet people, that's a great place to invite them to. So not that long ago, she went to an event, and one of the tactics that I teach people as well or coach people through is how do you get your energy in a place where you're ready for that event? Because oftentimes when it feels icky to network, we don't want to be there. And it's often about the energy that we put out there. So I
Yes.
teach that in a tactical approach that's around your five senses. So she listened to some great music. On her way there, she met some wonderful people. She invited someone up to the top of that tower. And it was a great way to start a connection with that person. And it's something she would have never done before the coaching that I had worked with her on. And those are the things that I just love seeing because it's about just taking one step forward. It's not that you need to go through a major transformation. It's what are
Revamp
these small
yourself.
steps that you can take? Yeah, what are small steps that you can take that's going to make it more comfortable for you?
Mm, I love that. Piecemeal advice that you can actually take immediately. You don't have to go out there and, you know, sign up for a course or practice, which makes the anxiety level, even higher. Like it goes through the roof, and just take that one step in front of you. Yeah. Okay. Now, and I think you answered this, but I want to ask you personally, how do you help your clients find calm and clarity amidst the busyness of daily life?
Yeah, so it's kind of what I just mentioned is partially it's around your energy. And so we talk through what are those different things that you can be doing from a tactical standpoint. So that's from all five senses, but also breathing exercises, meditation, things that might help you. But I always like to say it's not a one size fits all. I want to help you understand what tools you have available to you, but you need to try them out to see what works for you because it's not a one size fits all. But if you don't know what you can try, then you're never going to make it be something that is realistic for you. So that's part of it, as well as mindset and being in the right mindset to be able to go out there and do it. If we keep telling ourselves stories, because oftentimes with networking, people will say, I don't do it because I'm afraid. Okay, what are you afraid of? I'm afraid of being rejected.
Judgment.
Okay, well, what happens if someone rejects you? And just keep going down the questions and asking why. And oftentimes it comes back to, I'm telling myself the story. We all do it. I do it to myself as well. But if we rewrite the story in our head and say, I'm capable of doing this, I'm just not there yet, I'm going to do this, then we will eventually make it happen. But if we keep telling ourselves that we can't do this, then no, you're not going to get there. So we have to rewrite that story. And that helps us get through a lot of the challenges in the day to day. And it's not always just spinning it positively. It's more, what do we tell ourselves to make sure that we are moving forward in a direction that we want to go toward?
I love that. And I wanted to double down on the find out what works for you, because like it's not just, an extrovert who's not. So it's like if people were to look from the outside and say, okay, it's easy for you to say because you're an extrovert and it's your strength. But I'm gonna disagree, because if you are not an extrovert, you may be an ambivert, or you will need to find your clique. And then maybe you don't need to go to that event by yourself. You could grab, a friend or two friends to come with you and then network as a group. So it becomes less intimidating to you. So find out the way that will work for you. And maybe you have your own way, Rachel. I have my own way of networking, right? Making connection. It's just that there's no right or wrong. As long as the intention is correct, when you're making when you're trying to establish that connection, I think that ought to go somewhere positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's not a one size fits all. Everybody's going to do it slightly different. But my goal really was, I work with clients, is what are the different approaches or ways that you can try something out? Because the way that you're doing it doesn't mean that it's wrong or bad. But let's see if there's other things that you can add or try to do that may be different than what you're doing right now that you may like better. Or maybe you're not doing it well enough. I also have clients that are doing too much networking and they're going to too many conferences, but they're not following up and they're not really getting anything of it other than feeling like they're doing a lot of networking. And it honestly doesn't really matter if you're extroverted or introverted or an ambivert, because everybody has areas where they don't like doing things and struggle in a lot of ways. And introverts are actually the best networkers because they do a lot of listening, where extroverts do a lot of talking.
Talking. I am
Yeah.
guilty of the talking one, which I am trying to dial it back down. So, well, thank you for that, Rachel. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. How do you measure the impact of your coaching on your clients' personal and professional lives?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it really is, dependent upon the individual and have they felt that they've made an impact in their own life, right? It's hard this is not a very measurable type of coaching in a way. It's more qualitative versus quantitative. And it's really about, do they feel like they now have those tools, even if they didn't implement all those tools, do they feel like they're better equipped than what they were when they started working with me? And that's really the ultimate goal. I always have them start with, what goals do they have? We don't always get to reach every goal. Like, I do a group coaching program that's 12 weeks. We don't always reach every single goal, but you have stepped away from that program knowing that you have all those tools in your toolbox and you know how to use them. But it's on you to implement them, because as a coach, I can't do it for you. No coach can. It's
right.
really about, how do you move forward? I am your accountability partner, but you have to actually implement the things that we talk about. And
Yeah.
so if you now have more information than what you did when we first started, you know how to implement that, that's really where the impact starts to come to play. And some people, implement quicker than others, and some may take a little bit longer. for that to come to fruition for them.
I love that. Yeah. It's actually depending on the individual at the end of the day, because as coaches ourselves,
Right.
we cannot, you can take the horse to the water, but you can't make the horse drink the water. So yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
we're there to guide you. We're there to point you to the right direction should you go astray. But implementing them, executing the actions, it's you. So yeah,
Exactly.
what are you working on currently, Rachel?
So currently, I have another group coaching program that's starting in January and continuing to fill those spots up, as well as working on my speaking. So I'm always improving upon the presentations that I do, the webinars, the workshops. Those are always important for me. I'm trying to get a newsletter out, which hopefully will come in the new year. So lots of little things that I'm working on.
Wow. Okay. Now, me being curious again, like, do you do this all by yourself, or do you have a team helping you out?
It's just me.
Oh my
It's
God.
just me, so I can
I
only do
want
so much.
I can
It's a
totally
one
relate.
woman solopreneur show. Yeah.
Solopreneur show. Yeah. Well, kudos
Yeah.
to you, Rachel. I am
Yeah.
rooting
Thank
for
you.
you because I am in the same boat right now. The production of the podcast to the social media is all me, and the networking, and yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's better doing this, even though I get exhausted from all the 100 things that I want to do at the same time. Like even today before the interview, I didn't sleep very well last night because I suddenly had this gush of ideas coming, and I'm like, I woke up and I told my mom, I don't know why, but I'm feeling pumped up today, so I can't sleep. So I got an interview at 10 a.m. Maybe I'll take a nap after the interview. But thank you for that, Rachel.
Yeah.
We're gonna pivot to a self-worth question, and I have one question for each of my guests. Question for you is: existential crises often lead us to question the meaning and purpose of our lives. Have you encountered these challenging moments, and what insights have you gained?
Can you repeat the question again?
Existential crises often lead us to question the meaning and purpose of our lives. Now, have you encountered these challenging moments, and what insights have you gained?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of things have happened. The biggest thing that happened to me recently was when October 7th happened, and I'm Jewish, and that really, really affected me as a person. And a lot of generational trauma came through that I have felt before, like when my grandparents were alive, but they've all since passed. My dad passed away. It'll be 10 years ago in March. But a lot just came kind of flooding back without me even realizing where this pain was coming from. And you go about your daily life and live the way that you do, especially in America, just feeling like you're safe and everything is okay. And then all of a sudden your world gets turned upside down and you realize that you're no longer safe and your identity is no longer safe. And that can be very hard to manage. And it's not just me, it's everyone that is like me. And that has definitely been a struggle. And it's been 27 days today since it happened. And it's not necessarily getting better, it's getting worse. And not just in New York City, in other countries. It's really bad in Australia right now. And it's very hard to see because the Holocaust wasn't that long ago. And all of a sudden, people are denying that that even happened when there's people that are the survivors that were in the Holocaust are very old and are dying off. But those of us that had family that had died in the Holocaust, it's like this history is getting wiped away where people are saying, this isn't true. This isn't what happened. But it's very well true. It's very well documented what happened, and nobody should ever have to go through that experience. But we all have traumas that have affected us generationally or today, and it's understanding those. But I think it's also education and listening and knowing that we're all different but we all are more alike than we are different. And one of the things that I've really tried to lean into is kindness. And really, I try to be as kind as I possibly can, but also wanting other people and being around people that are kind. And a mindset acronym that I actually picked up in the last year and a half or so what is called QTIC. So Q meaning quit, T taking, I it, P personally. Quit taking it personally. Because what's happening is not about me. The other person that is saying the things that they're saying, it's about them. And they don't realize that yet, but it is. And it definitely helps when you have that mindset in place and you think about Q-tip, quit taking it personally. It's not about me, it's about them. Then it's a little bit easier to digest in some ways, as difficult as every day can be, that we will get through this in some way, as difficult as it is. But a lot of people are spewing hate without even realizing what they're talking about. They have no clue what they're saying or why they're saying it. They just learned something on TikTok and all of a sudden they're taking that for gospel. And who are they learning it from? I have no idea. But it was a 60-second clip or a 30-second clip. And all of a sudden you see 10, 20, 30 of those 30 or 60-second clips. And brainwash is not the right way to put it, but in some ways it is, because you're just having this repetition that's constantly coming and you're not even thinking about where it's coming from. And you just take that as is. And people today are really struggling with critical thinking. But part of that issue is that the information that's coming their way is not given to them in a way that they can critically think about it, because it's coming in those 30 or 60-second clips versus even 20 years ago, we'd have to read a newspaper to learn about something. And today it's in front of us in a couple minutes. So we don't have the time to really think through what that is that's coming our way. But that's really been the biggest challenge that I have been dealing with in the last 18, well, it's not quite 18 months, but a little over a year.
I was just talking to a guest, to a host last night about not the same issue, but rather how we are bombarded with information, but we lack the critical thinking skill to actually discern what and how the information was derived and the background of it. Like, for you to be able to say that, that means that, of course, we all know that the information may be true, maybe not true, but then we have the other side of the world, or not other side of the world, a big mass of the population of the world that just takes it in as, okay, that's the truth. And then they go to they become far left, or, in their thinking. And I know far left is, I meant it in their opinion or perspective, not in the States, because I know,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
yeah. And it's dangerous, very dangerous. And especially we have this new generation coming up, Gen Z and Alpha. If we don't teach this in school, or if they don't pick this up anywhere from their parents or the household that they're in, we're gonna have a generation with polarizing opinion, and each one of the side will stand up to their own point and say this is the right way. But how sure or how credible is the information? So, well, thank you for the end. I'd love to send you a hug.
Thank you.
What is your heart's greatest wish?
My heart's greatest wish. For me, it's really about just being happy, like finding happiness in everything that I do. From a work side, I'm the happiest I've ever been. From a personal side, I'd love to find my husband soon. So that would be ideal.
We're putting it out there to the universe, and so it is.
Yeah,
It happens here on
exactly.
this show.
And again, from a health perspective, there's a lot of pieces in your life, and I just want to be able to kind of have all those buckets filled in some way. So actually, when I left working at my last full-time job as a chief customer officer, I really felt depleted in a lot of ways. And so a little over a year ago, I decided that I needed to think about my life in a way in buckets. So I have a post-it note on my desk of my buckets are recreation, family, relationships, health, community, finance, career, friends, and spirituality. And not any one bucket should be overflowing and not one should be depleted. And I keep it on here so that I can just keep reminding myself, what might be lacking or what do I need to fill or what is too full that I need to not spend as much time doing. Like, for example, if I'm spending too much time working, I need to do less of that and do more of something else and to just be more balanced in my day to day. And that really has helped ground me a lot since I started paying attention to that more.
I mean, holistic in all areas of your life. I love it. So, Rachel, do you have a mantra that you live by?
So the mantra that I created was actually before I stopped my full-time job, but I still look at this every single day. It's also on my desk, but it's my resume doesn't define who I am. Enjoying life outside of work is equally important.
That, listener, is the takeaway for today. Okay, if you could create a quote right now for you to leave to the audience listening and the world as your legacy, what would it be?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Can I give you a quote that I really like?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I have all these post-it notes on my desk, so I might as well use them. So this quote is, your best teacher is your last mistake. And I think that is really important because often, especially women that are type A, tend to be perfectionists. And we really struggle with doing things perfect versus making there be any action. And that's why I really love this quote, because we have to make mistakes to get better. And if we don't take action, we're just going to stay stagnant. Nothing has to be perfect. It just needs to get done. And then you can perfect it once you get it done. And so I really love that quote specifically as kind of like a guiding poster, an additional mantra in a way.
I love that. I love that. Quit trying to be perfect. Just get it done and then perfect it along the way. Tweak it along the way. It is better done than sitting on it and just trying to make it perfect before you. So, for example, like for me, when I post my content out, I know, when you see a lot of content, social content creators, they say, oh, how do I do that? But if I were to wait and just master all of the, say, editing skills, it will take me months, if not a year, to just push out. So I will just push out some and then just learn along the way. I mean, after all, that's how you learn.
And the other thing, exactly. And also, there's people around you that want to help too. I mean, that's the whole purpose of building connections. Like, don't be afraid to ask somebody for help. I use this for myself, but I tell others, my clients, that as well. Like, you have a 33% chance that they're going to say no. There's a 33% chance they're going to ghost you. And there's a 33% chance that they're going to say yes. So just ask. What's the worst that's going to happen? They don't respond to you or they say no. It's okay. You just move on. But that's why, that's why you need to keep connecting with people and meeting people. You just never know who you can help or how someone else can help you.
I love that. What a way to start my day. Now, Rachel, how can people reach out to you? I know I'm going to need you once I get myself back in New York. So we're definitely going to meet. So yeah, we're connected. Yeah. Okay. And there you have it, everyone. You've just heard an inspiring journey and incredible wisdom. Thank you for sharing the work you're doing to uplift others and make a lasting impact. Despite the challenges, Rachel, you're paving the way for others, and your dedication is a true testament to resilience and purpose. To our listeners, this has been another thought-provoking episode of Your Worthless. Read that again, the juxtaposition of your very soul. Now, if you've ever felt worthless, know this, you're not alone. But here's the deeper truth. If you were truly worthless, why would your soul choose to be here in this exact moment in this lifetime? Your soul traveled from the infinite, not just to exist, but to matter. And for that reason alone, you are worthy. And with that, I'd like to thank Rachel Rozen for joining us today, and to all of you for listening. Until next time, I'm Nierras, your host. Keep shining, keep growing, and remember, you are worthy and you are enough. See you in the next episode. Thank you so much, Rachel, for your time.